come to find out, there are a lot of people that don't like to be touched. And there are also a lot of reasons why people don't like to be touched. And in this video, I'm going to go over a few of those things. A lot of people don't like to be touched, and there's several reasons for that. It's not just on the skin and the nervous system and the sensitivities. There's a lot more to it than that. Me, for example, I don't mind hugs. I don't mind being around people who like to give hugs, but I don't like strangers to touch me at all. And I don't like scratchy clothes at all. I said a long time ago, I am never ever again wearing anything that's uncomfortable. And that includes shoes. I really don't like shoes at all. I might wear sandals, but shoes to me are confining, and I just don't like them. In searching as to why I don't like to be touched sometimes, or other people don't like to be touched, I found this graph that shows the threshold on certain parts of the body that are sensitive to touch. And believe it or not, the number one place that's sensitive to touch is your calf. So if anybody's touching your calf, you'll know why it bothers you. The next one is your shoulder, and that I found to be a big one on the last video that I made about that, is that people didn't like being touched on the shoulder. And it kind of makes sense if that's one of the more sensitive areas for touch. I really don't like to be touched on the shoulders. It makes me, or I feel almost insecure when somebody touches me on the shoulder, try to shrug it off. And the next place is the thighs, on our thighs, where people have a very, very high sensitivity to touch. And the next thing is the lower back is very sensitive to touch. And with this touch sensation, some of it can be good, because I know that when I am with a man on a date or something, and they put their hand, on the back of lower your back, maybe that's something that people used to do, I don't know. But when they do that, it's more like, it's reassuring, it's reassuring, and makes me feel secure and more confident if the guy is a nice guy anyway. And the next place is the forearm. So if you don't like to be touched on the forearm, that's a sensitivity spot too. And then there's the top of the foot, and then the bottom of the foot, and then your hand and your wrist on this area right here is really sensitive to some people. And then your forehead, and then your palms, and then your fingertips. And so I thought of, when the palms, I thought about palm readers and what they do, and maybe why people are so hesitant, because I don't really like my palms touched either. And it is kind of sensitive. It's kind of like tickling people sometimes. But I'm very, very wary about, extending my hand out for somebody to read my palm, because I guess for me, it's like, it's private. Not to say that I wouldn't want to do that out of pure curiosity, but I really do have an aversion to people touching my palms. And other reasons for the sensitivity is, our nervous systems aren't working correctly from a brain injury or an accident, something that's damaged the nervous system, so it's not able to process the information to your brain that it was used to doing before. And there's a lot of things that have to do with metabolic or endocrine systems, because nerve sensitivity can be diabetes related. You can have a low thyroid function. You can have an autoimmune disorder. You could be exposed to some toxic chemicals. And I am not surprised, with all of the crap that they put in our food and water. It completely makes sense to me why people are becoming so much more sensitive to touch, because touching and human interactions and relationships are very important. And with all these toxins in our food, it makes people even less so want to be touched or be around people. So who knows if that was done on purpose or not, but I have noticed that. Another thing can be from anxiety or trauma, sexual abuse, or any abusive situation where you're not necessarily your nervous system says that, but your brain is built for one thing, and that's survival. And if you've experienced some trauma in your life, chances are you might be a little bit more susceptible to touch, especially from, strangers. And that might be, another reason why empaths who are sensitive or do have sensitive skin have a hard time with relationship, because relationship usually involve a lot of touching. And I know that I've struggled with some relationships, and I've read information, some empaths have problems with relationships, but how deep does that go? Is that a mental block for relationships, or is it a touching thing for relationships? And I know that I have shied away from some relationships because, if I can't imagine myself having sex with someone, chances are it's probably not going to work out, and I'm not going to want to touch that person, after a date or whatever. Then that comes into play when you're setting up your boundaries and following your intuition, watching for those signs of synchronicity to keep yourself safe. And that can be with touching too, because it's like people say, well, I don't want to offend anybody. Well, there is a good possibility that the other person is just as uncomfortable and doesn't want to do it either. So it's a matter of setting your boundaries, even saying, if you put up your hands like that, most people get it. It doesn't have to be rude or anything. Most people get that means, or crossing your arms. There's a lot of different things that you can subtly relay that information. And in my previous video about the body of 9, that's where being able to understand people through their work that they've done and put into the physiological body structure and posture that makes people different. If you can understand that as well, it's even easier to read other people, to have that mutual understanding, or even just to send a message. Like I said, it's all energy. You just send a message that it's not okay. And sometimes it doesn't matter why. That's just the way we are. I mean, I did never really overanalyze, why I didn't like scratchy clothes. It's just like, I don't want to. But I am really sensitive for the fact if I do have shoes on or something and I get a little rock in there or something, a little teeny thing, it feels like a boulder to me, and I've got to take it off. I've got to get out of there. And the same with, I don't know what generation might understand this, but the Princess and the Pea, where they wanted to find the true princess, and the true princess, they knew if they put a little pea into the bed that it would bruise her. Well, I feel like that sometimes too, because if I'm laying on something, or even doing a meditation or yoga, if there's something poking into me or something, I mean, that is just bothersome. And sometimes it feels like pain. I know that it's not, but sometimes it feels like pain. So if you like this video or you learned anything, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.